This was a roundtable recorded with colleagues from Gravesham and Dartford, where we looked at a range of issues, including the importance of celebrating Black History Month, the impact of Black Lives Matter, and the importance of how we carry this conversation forward beyond Black History Month. Fiona, why do you think it's important that we celebrate Black History Month?
There is an old African proverb which says, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. That for me is what Black History Month is all about. It's about telling our story, not through the negative narratives, but by our own truths. As I sit here as a direct descendant of slaves who were taken to West Africa over 200 years ago, I guess you can say that I am a product of the slaves who made it, the survivors. My ancestors are the people who helped build other nations, contributed towards the wealth of other nations, and I am humbled by that knowledge. Celebrating Black History Month ensures that we do not lose the rich history, the depth of culture. We must jealously guard our stories. Black History Month is about being unapologetic about who we are and who we will become.
Well, for me, Black History Month is a time for reflection about the contributions that we've all made to aspects of society, not just the ones that are focused on. I mean, we've been inventors, we are inventors, we're engineers, we're doctors, lawyers, philanthropists. Sometimes the focus is also just only on specific areas. It's also about celebration and taking pride in sharing our history and educating ourselves, our children, but also others about the fantastic contributions that we've all made to society. For myself, I learn every year something new. It's not about rewriting history, but making sure history is reflective of everyone's contribution.
So Hazel, why do you think it's important that we celebrate Black History Month here in Kent?
Well, as it's already been mentioned, I am also a direct descendant of slaves who made it back to West Africa. It's important to me that Black History Month is celebrated, not just in October, but all year through, because this is about us, our history.
What advice would you give to an ally, be it personal or professional, who wants to support racial equality? There's been a lot of talk lately and a lot of people want to get involved but may not know how to. So what advice would you give to anyone that wanted to become an ally?
Well, my take on it is that if you do not have to experience something to be able to empathize. Just being a decent human being is all it takes sometimes. My advice to anyone, whether it be an organization or an ally, is that they would only succeed if they are willing to be unapologetic about supporting racial equality. You empower your Black staff or colleagues, give them the days to be their best self, allow them to talk about their lived experiences and never minimize those experiences.
I totally agree with what Fiona said. I think we've all got a responsibility to promote and support racial equality, and it's about equality for everyone. My advice would be make connections, widen your learning, take the initiative, make sure the matter's on the agenda in meetings or forums that you attend. Racial equality for me is not just about equality for all. It's also about thinking about the institutions, how reflective organisations are, how reflective we are of our communities.
I must admit that I prefer the term partnership, because being a partner is a slightly different approach to being an allied. And I'm calling on allies, or those who see themselves as allies, to move into being a partner. It means we need to be at the table in these discussions. We don't need something being done to us. We need to be part, include us in the discussions, partner with us, make connections, and also have the courage to speak up.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Jade and Hazel have said about, you know, allies having to speak up for themselves. Like even just yesterday, a friend had come to me and was sort of saying, oh, this person was saying this and they were racist, and it was, you know, they're coming to me to say, isn't it awful? And I said, well, what did you do? You know, did you challenge them? And it was like, the response was, well, no, you know, because I've got to work with them. And it's kind of that thing, things being left. And I think that is what would be really helpful, is if these things were kind of called out in the workplace, you know, with family members. And it is awkward, it's difficult, but I think that is what's going to help to kind of to change attitudes, really.
I would say intention is important. So show interest, and remember, it's all our responsibility to make it right. So do your bit, however little, wherever you are, and be part of the change. Use your influence. If you're an ally with influence, wherever you have influence, use that. And don't be scared to get it wrong, because you are likely to get it wrong. You're trying to put yourself in the shoes of others, and sometimes you're not able to say it the right way, or maybe understand exactly what the other person's experience is. But don't let that put you off.
It's not enough to be non-racist. You need to be anti-racist. I think you need to, as an ally, to use your influence to help others and to listen to the stories that are being told to you, and not expect that person telling you to educate you, for you to go out and learn for yourself about what other people's experiences are and how you can make that better.
Hazel, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you? And do you think the message is clear enough?
I think the message is clear, although there are some intentional behaviors to try and muddle the message. The message is simply saying Black Lives Matter as well. It's about equity and justice. It's about the right to be our authentic self, just like anybody else. And it's about, opportunities and value in the same way as other people and other lives are valued. And I think it's about treating Black people the same, the way you would like to be treated. And for us, it's about finding our equal place. We've got to. We deserve it. We're worth it.
When I saw the protests around the world, it made me think that really and truly Black lives do matter, because we say Black Lives Matter, we know all lives matter. We say Black Lives Matter because right now Black lives are in danger. When you see what's going on with the police, they need to take some responsibility. And even after the George Floyd incident, you see people mimicking that on social media and think it's a joke, and really, we need to take a stand with this. We need to continue the Black Lives Matter movement. And if people can't differentiate between the political wing and the movement, the movement for change in Black lives, then, all this will be for nothing. So we have to continue with our quest for Black Lives Matter, because we know Black Lives Matter.
So from my experience working around Kent, I keep picking up this message when people talk about Black Lives Matter, that it's an American issue. It's not an issue for the UK. It's not an issue for Kent. So Fiona, have you any views around that?
I think people like to comfort themselves with the knowledge that, well, it's not as bad as it is in America, really. But we all know that as long as it's anywhere in the world, it needs to be addressed. It's not an American issue, it's a worldwide matter. Like Pritpal rightly said, it's a human rights issue. Black lives would matter anywhere as long as there's injustice anywhere.
Prepare for yourself as well. Do you think it's an American issue, or do you think, you'd be surprised the number of people who've said that to me here in Kent, that, it's an American issue while we're discussing it even here in Kent?
I think some of that just goes to show really that it's come up in America and it's been really highlighted, but we have our own issues. We've always had them. I can reflect in terms of my own experience. I was born in this country. I came to Kent 30 years ago. I've had experiences of growing up in the Midlands, experiencing direct racism at that point. The world is different. Things are different, and I hope things are different for my children. But I also know that young people in particular, I'll focus on young people, are still experiencing racism. It's about what's taught in schools, how other adults see them, their opportunities in terms of employment. We can just think and look at sort of the prison population, the mental health institutions, in terms of how decisions are made. So it's definitely just not an American issue. It's, as Fiona says, a worldwide issue, but we've got issues, I'm sure, within Kent as well as the UK, generally.
So there has been a lot of talk since the 25th of May, specifically about race, but what do we do now to move that conversation forward? How do we go from talk to action so that we can implement some positive change?
Like you say, don't just talk, act. Do not be a bystander. Enough has been said. I think we're all tired of talking to some extent. Stand for the truth wherever you are. Be the change in your organizations. Move the change forward. Do what is right. Be what is right. Be that change is all I can say on that.
That's a really important point, Steph. I mean, myself and Michelle were in a online event last week, which was done by the former NBA player, John Amici. And he made that same point. It's not sufficient now just to say that you're not racist, that you can sit on the fence, that, organizations need to take the lead. They need to be proactive. No one's asking for special treatment. You just want to be treated the same.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
it's not sufficient just to say, yeah, we've got these policies, we've got these procedures. We need people to be more proactive. And where there is racism, be it subtle, be it overt, we need to call people out on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Claudette, and other colleagues, will have examples that. So I've been working in the field of racial equality for 21 years now. And when I first started, it was a lot more open, a lot more kind of racist graffiti, a lot of kind of racially motivated attacks. Now it's a lot more subtle. Don't get me wrong, we, through our casework, we still get, attacks and hate crimes. But in the employment, it's a lot more subtle than it was. And it's really kind of, you really have to work hard to kind of push back to employers to say that this is discrimination or is unconscious bias.
I think for some allies or partners, in this 21st century, they're probably still looking for the overt racism, which doesn't quite exist in that way anymore. So it would be about just opening your eyes and see the covert subtleness of behaviors.
If you could give someone one piece of advice that they could do, think, read, say, one thing to actually help permanent change, what would it be?
So the piece of advice that I would give is, although we are tired of talking, if you need to continue to talk, to speak, just keep going. Some people don't learn until they've been spoken to 1,000 times. When you are speaking, try to be eloquent and knowledgeable. When you're knowledgeable, it gets the point across even in a much deeper and a greater effect.
Leadership. For me, it's about leadership is key. Part of the problem has been leadership that is either allowed or not challenged, or created an environment where some of these things have continued to happen.
What can we do? How can we move this forward?
So one thing, I'm saying we need to come together. We need to begin to plan to support each other to succeed as Black people. We need to form those communities. Life is not a rehearsal. We get one chance at it. And it really does break my heart to see so many Black people, men and women, finishing the race in a way that could be very different if they had different opportunities.
I think we could, one of the ways in which we can do this, we can start knocking on doors, the appropriate doors that people will listen. As was said earlier, we need to band together. Together we are strong. We can't do it on our own. A single person going into the council and said, I want this, I want that, doesn't make any, inroads. But if we go as a group, a collective group, they won't ignore us. We will not be ignored if we stand firm. And I think this is the way forward. Getting together, organizing ourselves, and stand firm, and then make our approach.
Very true. I was at a webinar last night where David Omoleigho, the British historian, And he pointed out, and I hadn't really realised it, that for the past 2 years, Black History Month has been quite negative because it was focused mainly on the Windrush scandal. And then this year was the year that obviously the report's been published, and the recommendations and everything else have been published just this week, very public, you can go and have a look at it. And this was the year that we were supposed to really be celebrating the good stuff, okay? And then the 25th of May happened. So it's really important, I think, that as a group, yeah, we are able to focus on the good stuff. So we've asked, you know, why we should celebrate Black History Month. And we've made sure that we've got nice, you know, narratives from each and every one of you for that. And that's something I'd really like to be highlighted, because there's going to be a lot of people talking about the negative, and it's really important actually. And it is to avoid that there's a chip on their shoulder narrative, but it's really, really important that we do highlight the good stuff. And, you know, as the points that you've all made, you know, I don't want to be represented as how you see me. Let me be represented as how I see me. Yes, because the fact of the matter is, we are only here because they were there.